Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another game of interplanetary I Spy going on here, but this isn't going to be a short one. There's so much to see in this little area here. This is going to blow your mind. It blew my mind, and I've been saving this for a rainy day. And I've been trying to do shorter videos recently, but there's no way I can actually cover what we've got here in a sort of 10-minute video. This is going to take at least 20 or 30 minutes. So if you want to see the images on their own and you don't want this to be waffle on for 25 minutes or so, then you can go to the end of the video. Like with all my videos, all the clips and images and enhancements, the raw images and enhancements will all be in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the video, okay? So if you want to do that, you can fast forward straight to the end and watch the last 2 or 3 minutes, and all the images will be there in a nice sequence for you. And you can pause them, zoom in and out, whatever, and you can take screenshots, do what you like, okay? Now, the Sol we're looking at today is Sol 950. Now, there's quite a lot of images here, but obviously we're looking at the colour ones. There's also black and white ones. And this is a nice ridge line, and this is one of the best. I thought I'd already found some of the best ones, but I think this has got to be up there in the top 5. There's everything. This has got it all. We have what are like craniums, we have fossils, we have bones, we have all sorts of things here. Some of these things look a bit like carvings, some of them look like mummified heads. So we have something for everybody here, and let's get on with it because this is going to take a while, but I'll try not to be too long and long-winded because you can see all the images, as I said, at the end of the video, if you like, okay? Right, now, what I've done is I've put everything into a folder. So this makes it a little bit easier for me to organise myself. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you is this image. And I've been saving this. I found this last year. In fact, I did most of this last year, in November. And I found this. Now, this is an arm with fingers, fossilized into the ground. And not only do we have that, you can see the bones here. Now, what's rather odd about this, 1, 2, 3, 4, there seems to be possibly 6 fingers here, but I can't tell exactly because we have this object here. Let's zoom into that a bit. This may even be a skull or something, I don't know. But it's very dilapidated. And you've got what looks like a thumb and some fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, that may be 5. But that's obscuring some of our detail here, which is unfortunate because there may actually be 6 fingers. Or should I say 5 fingers and the thumb. So that's interesting, okay? But it's slightly inconclusive because of this object here. It's probably just a rock, but it looks interesting. But what's even more interesting is this thing here, just in front of it. We have what looks like part of a spine or some kind of bones, animal bones, here, all in a nice little row, okay? Here's the clip of that. I took a close-up of that and I've inserted it onto this image. And I have it here. There we are. In fact, if I do that, we should be able to move it over a bit and see that a bit more clearly. Okay? You can see these parts here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got symmetry in there. It almost looks mechanical, and it may even be a mechanical object. I'm not 100% either way on that. It's very odd. And I've got some other clips of that to show you in a minute. Now, what I did is I did 3 GigaPans of this area, and I'm not going to show you them in great detail. I'll quickly show you parts of them. But this is the first one I made, and this is basically just a section of the ridgeline. And what we have here is that arm with the hand on the end here. You can see that. And when I zoom out, you may not see this straight away, but there's a fossilized tree here as well. Now, whether this is actual tree branches or roots, I think probably roots of a tree that was once growing here, right here, sticking up. And we have these roots in the ground, joined up, which have petrified and fossilized into a kind of white material here. Okay, you can see the joins. Now, it's not immediately clear, so what I did is I did a negative of it, which shows you, may or may not show you better, I'm not sure. You can actually see branches coming out here, coming along here and down here and across here. I can see where there are other branches and arms coming off the main branches, okay? So you've got larger branches and smaller branches coming off. That's a tree. Okay, let's go back to the normal image of it, and then you might be able to see it better. You can see this is a good one here. Got this branch coming down here, it's broken there. You've got a branch coming off there. This one at the bottom, there's two limbs coming off this one. You've got the main limb here, and you've got a limb coming off here, and a limb coming off here. And there's a thinner, longer sort of branch there. There's another one coming off here. I think that was joined to this limb. It comes down here. These are tree roots, okay? That's what they are. So another one here with a limb coming off there. Not as clear there. It gets a little bit vague, but it goes right into this ridgeline. So these roots go right into here, and some of them go off actually right over to the right of the image here. And you can see these limbs coming off here. One there, got one there, got another one here, got another one coming off here, but it's broken off. And some of it's partially buried, of course, but a lot of it's exposed, and you've got a whole bunch of stuff coming up here as well. This is probably all joined together, but we can't see all of it because some of it's still buried. Cut. So that was really interesting, and I'll put some clips of that in at the end, like with everything else here, and I'll link you to the main page, which I've got up here, because really what you need to do with this set of images is to look at all of them, because there's something in almost every colour image here. It's got a strange object or a skull or a fossil or whatever in it. I mean, I'm going to show you some of them now. I'm not going to go through everything right now because it would take too long, because there's so much here, but I'll show you the main things I've got here for now anyway, and any extra things I don't show you will be at the end of the video, okay? Now, this one I've already showed before in one or two previous videos. One of my favourite recent finds. These are all found in November. This looks like a kind of reptilian-like skull with a jawbone and mouth. You can just about make out some teeth detail here, but this still has skin on it. You've got a nice nasal cavity there. It almost looks like it's got a moustache here, but I don't think that is. This thing looks like it's joined, but I don't think it is. Just here. I think that's an object behind, on the ground behind, perhaps. So you need to sort of ignore this bit here. Okay. What else could it be? You've got an eye detail here. You've got nose detail. You've got mouth detail. You've got even the sort of what looks like an exposed brain. But I think that's just the way the skull is. A lot of the skulls that I found, and other people, have a brain-like pattern to them, kind of wrinkled. This is quite small. This is probably only about 4 inches from left to right. Not very big. So a lot of these things are quite small. They may look big because I've zoomed into them, but they're not. Most of them are quite small. There's this one here. Now this was, I've already showed you the arm. I'll show you that again in a minute anyway. This is weird. And this is up on the ridge line further back, so it's not very clear. But even if you look at the raw image, you've got an eye here. You've got an eye just there with a what looks like an iris. You can just about make out a mouth there. It's a bit blurry. I had to turn it round, but that's what it is. Now, is that actually a cranium or a skull, or is it mummified, or is it actually some kind of carving or sculpture? Not really enough detail to tell with this one. It's very odd looking. There was that. So all these will be in at the end again anyway. There's this one. Now this was really odd. It looks like a koala bear. Absolutely insane. Now, whether this is carved or mummified, I couldn't tell you. There's not enough detail. And it seems to have like a sort of fuzzy kind of almost hair up here, or fur. And you've got quite a clear eye. Even in the raw image, once you let your eyes adjust, you might want to tilt your screen as well. Even in the raw image there, you can see the eye there, and another one here, and the nose coming down, and the mouth. And a rather odd sort of shape to it up here. Okay? Very odd. just when you thought you found it all on Mars, something like that comes along. This was a nice one. Now this is really interesting because not only have we got some really quite clear teeth here, which are very irregular, in a line there. You've got eye detail here, but what's rather odd about this one is not only is there not much of a nose to speak of here, like with many of the specimens I've shown before, they've got very small, sometimes very flat noses, or just sometimes just nostrils. They don't even have proper noses like most of us do. But what confused me about this when I was looking at it, if you look at the raw image, now I haven't enhanced that much, you can see the raw image here, you can see those teeth, you let your eyes adjust. It seems to have an eye here and another one above it. Now, that's weird, okay? I have to admit, unless this is part of the nose, I don't know, but there seems to be a sort of circular eyeball-looking part here, and then another one up here. Now, unfortunately, the right side of this skull is broken away here, so this would have come round and been a bit more symmetrical here, but that's damaged. It's been smashed. So we're missing stuff here, so there would have been another eye here, probably. But could this be a mutant? Now, I've often wondered, looking at some of these specimens on Mars, some of them look very odd, and some of them look really kind of quite grotesque. Now, of course, mummified heads and faces do tend to look quite grotesque, obviously. But I wonder whether some of these suffered from mutations because of the radiation on Mars, having had probably 2 massive nuclear atmospheric blasts in the distant past. I wonder whether a lot of these are mutated. So that could explain some of the rather odd features we're seeing on some of these skulls and mummified heads and stuff. So that's something to bear in mind. But that was an interesting one because I thought that row of teeth was pretty cool. I mean, it's not amazing detail. It looks slightly better if you go back a bit like that. But that was cool anyway. There was this little thing. This looks like a little carved animal. Just here. And even in the raw image you can see 2 eyes, a nose and a mouth. It's a bit vague, but it's there. It's definitely there. Unfortunately, it's in shadow, so you've really got to brighten it up like I've done here, but I haven't enhanced it much at all. I just brightened it right up and added a bit of contrast and a blue filter just to get rid of that sickly orangey brown colour. And there we have it. This is tiny. This is like a tiny little burial figurine or something, and depicts some kind of creature, I don't know, maybe a little dog or something like that, I don't know. I would say this is only a couple of inches in size, for 2 or 3 left to right at most, but it's quite a long way off. Unfortunately, this is up further back on the ridgeline, over to the left, and we don't see a lot of detail there. Here's one of the GigaPans I did. I'll quickly show you this now. And I've enhanced this and brightened it up, and this is quite good. There's that one I just showed you. There he is. It's right near the middle. And what I'll do is I'll put these GigaPans up on ArtAlienTV Mars magazine. So if you want to come along to that page on Facebook, that group on Facebook, you can download this and have a look yourself. So this would be near the top of the page as a download. It's not a huge file. This is a JPEG, but it's a high quality JPEG. And it's about nearly 16 megabytes, so it's not massive. So we got loads of crazy stuff here. And some of these things are obviously just rocks, but some of them do look like skulls. And what the hell's that? I mean, the way some of these things are balanced as well, they seem to be propped up. It's almost like they're propped up with something underneath. Very odd. Some very strange stuff here. So I'll let you have a look at that, because you may find some other things in here that I haven't found. So if you want to download that, like I said, go to ArtAlienTV Mars magazine on Facebook. If you're not a member, I will join you up for free, of course. This is blatantly, obviously, it's an arm, and it's right in between what looks like a fossilized tree. But what's rather strange about it is the number of arm bones. It seems to be that there's 4 of them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, instead of 2. Now we have 2 bones in our wrist, not 4. So this isn't a human arm or hand. This belongs to something very different. So I can't tell you what it belongs to. I don't know whether this is from some kind of reptile or other creature, but it's obviously something with fingers and a thumb, by the looks of it. It's hard to say. I can't tell you what species it is, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I know. But very interesting indeed. It does seem, you can see 4 clear bones here. Now, this may actually be 2 bones that have split and then fossilized. And that may be the case with these here. Some of these may have split. But I don't know. I don't know. It's very odd. But either way, it does look like a hand with wrist bones. And the little kind of spine-looking object here is very tantalizing. We got some weird shapes here joined to it. And there are parts that kind of go behind this as well. You've got these little parts coming around here. This may be mechanical. It may not be a spine at all. Let's have a look at it here. Very interesting. You've got these parts kind of overlapping and going in and out of each other, just here, like I showed you. Very interesting. And this seems to have like a head with an arm coming along here, which is joined to this, and there's these parts coming out behind. So this may be part of something mechanical like an engine. Who knows? But either way, it's not a rock. There's absolutely no way. That is just a normal rock. Look at it. Look at these parts, interlocking. Is it mechanical? Is it part of a spine with something else attached? I don't know. Either way, it's very interesting indeed. There were some interesting things on the ridgeline behind. This looks a bit like a carved effigy of some sort of head here. And this looks like one as well, but it's so eroded. There may have been eyes put in here. It reminded me of the sort of Moai you see on Easter Island. It's so blurry and in shadow, unfortunately, that you really can't make out this very well at all. But this does seem to have 2 eyes there and a nose there and a bit of a mouth, but heavily eroded and sort of broken down. That kind of looks like a nose, but with 2 eyes. But I may do another enhancement of that and see if I can drag it out. But because it's all in shadow on the ridgeline, you really can't see it very well. I'll show you that on the GigaPan very quickly up here. This is the main GigaPan. Now, at the back of the ridgeline here, there isn't a great deal of detail to be seen because it's very poor and out of focus. And I've really brightened this up to try and see what's going on here. There's those weird objects there. That does look like a carved head almost there and there, like a row. So I'll do some more clips of that. And this one didn't come out very well for some reason. Sometimes what happens is when you do a GigaPan, some of the images are much darker than the others, and when the GigaPan software equalizes it, it makes it all look a bit muddy and crap. There's that kind of koala looking thing there. There's a weird thing in front of it as well. I mean, there's so much here. I'll put these up on Mars Magazine for you anyway, and you can have a look through them. And what I'll probably do is I'll do an enhanced GigaPan with the raw GigaPan underneath it, so you can actually look at the image before it's been brightened and color corrected. But generally, they don't look very good when they're raw. This is a raw one of this area. It looks very muddy, but you can still see the tree branches and roots, I should say. You can see those roots quite clearly, even in the raw image. So they're definitely there. And there's that arm. Now, how big is this arm? It's not that big. I would say it's kind of human-sized, maybe a bit larger. It's only one end of an arm with some fingers. Let's look at the raw images here. I stitched those 2 together. It's in 2 parts here. You've got the hand and then the arm behind it. So I stitched them together to get this. And you can see the whole thing together. But there's a sort of a more distant view of it as well. Here's all the branches. You can see them when they're laid out like this. You can see that they join up. So that jumped out at me straight away. So you've really got to look at the whole set of images, but some of them are much darker. If you've got some here which are quite dark and some are quite light, and you really need to brighten some of these up. Some of these darker ones are very muddy looking, and it's difficult to see what's going on. But you can see even in the raw image, that hand is really clear. This is a close-up of it with the little kind of spine-looking mechanical thing here. It's a little bit pixelated, but if you enlarge the image, as I've shown in some of my tutorial videos, there is a playlist of tutorials on how to enhance these images, and the best thing to do is to enlarge them and stuff them with pixels, and then they don't blur and break up so much. When you zoom in, you don't get so much pixelation. You can see that even in the raw image quite clearly, and you can see those bones. Unfortunately, we got this object here which is obscuring some of this detail, so it's a bit mucky and a bit confusing to look at because you've got that thing there. But that may be a skull. Who knows? Very interesting stuff. So we've got multiple things here. So we've got what looks like an arm with a hand, basically some wrist bones with fingers and a thumb, and a little spine object. We've got what looks like a koala looking thing. We've got this weird thing here. What the hell is that? Some kind of, I don't know, some kind of humanoid or something, or I don't know. You got this one. The mutant with the two eyes on the same side of the head, which is, I mean, that may not be, that may be part of the nose, or it could be a growth. But it does look like an eye. Even in the raw image here, you can see it there, and another one there. So, really odd. I mean, what the hell's going on here? And like I said, we got the, this is the clearest one. It's in very good shadow. And the way the shadow falls underneath it really outlines it nicely. So that was really cool, that one. So we've got multiple things here, and really, I think the tree is for me probably the most obvious of these things. You can see where these branches are joined. The limbs of the roots here. Now, of course, it may have been a tree that collapsed and then fossilized, but it's more likely that the top of the tree would have rotted away, leaving the roots underground. And then what's happened is the ridgeline is eroded away, showing the fossilized roots and remains of the tree underneath, and you can actually see where it's coming out of the ground there. Okay, so there would have been a tree right here, and you can see the rover wheels, so you can get a good sort of. These are 20 inches across. We can't see the whole wheel there, so these are quite chunky branches. I would say probably the thickest ones here are probably 2 or 3 inches wide. Okay, now that also gives us a scale for the arm. I would say the arm with the hand here, because we've got the wheel there, that would be about 20 inches across from here to here. That gives us an arm length of around 12 to 15, I would say. I'd say about 12 inches. So that's about a foot long. So that's human sized. It may be a bit more than a foot, maybe about 14 inches, but of course this isn't the entire wrist bone. It's broken here. And the fingers are very long. But I would say that's human sized, approximately, give or take an inch. Because if you look at a male wrist, like my wrist is about a foot, probably about 11 inches long, my wrist, and the hand, I'd say about another five or six. So altogether, actually, yeah, it's probably a bit smaller, if anything, than a human adult arm with fingers. So it's not full size. It looks pretty big in the close-up, but that's just because it's zoomed in. Let's have another quick look at that. There we have it. Okay. So it's probably just a little bit smaller than a human arm, an adult arm, but there's not a lot in it, and we may not be seeing all of the wrist here. This may have been another 3 or 4 inches long before the elbow. Okay. So it's not huge and it's not small. It's about the right size. I'll let you look through these because if I start going through all of this now, we'll be here all day. But there's another thing here that's like a skull or something. Got an eye socket there and one there, a nose and a mouth. Some of them are a bit vague, but if you increase the contrast on some of these things, you can pull the detail out. So all we have to do is take a clip, play with it in Photoshop or whatever. I mean, what the hell's that? It's got two eyes and a nose. God, these things are all over the place. And like I've said before, I did write this sort of article earlier, which I may read out to you now, which will only take a couple of minutes, and it kind of explains what I think is going on here. Right, I'm going to try and read this without losing my voice. My voice is starting to go now. Having now found around 200 mummified humanoids and animals on the surface of Mars, it has become more obvious that the Martians may have only buried the heads of the dead and not the bodies. By now, I should have found many more skeletal bones, such as femurs, tibia, fibia, ribs, vertebrae and pelvic bones, as well as countless other smaller bones, like fingers and toes, that kind of thing. But they are simply not to be seen on the ground, apart from in this area. All the other areas I found, there are hardly any small bones or arm bones or anything to be seen. This is unusual, because we actually have a fossilized bone and we have skulls lying around as well. So we've got multiple anomalies in this particular area. In fact, only a few bones have been discovered so far in total. This says to me that the bodies were either eaten by predators or disposed by cremation, or by cremating them. Then the head was buried separately, often with burial items such as armour or small figurines. Now, I've shown plenty of figurines in previous videos, and a lot of these skulls and mummified heads are wearing helmets or hats, but a lot of them are wearing helmets, so these were warriors. Many of the humanoid heads are wearing hats or helmets. Some still have facial hair such as beards. Many seem to have fatal head injuries and dents in the helmets, as if struck by a blunt weapon such as a hammer. Some seem even to have bullet entry wounds to the cranium of around 0.5 inch caliber, so that's 50 cal. Okay, and that goes for some of the creatures I found as well. They've got holes in the forehead where they've been shot. Okay, we even found what looks like one with an arrow or blade or a spear kind of tip stuck in it as well. Okay, I'll link to these things at the end of the video if you don't believe me. Right, I'll put some links up to some of my playlists, and you can go through. This can all be verified. As I've said for many years now, the Mars soil is very conducive for the preservation of specimens due to the high sulfur content, which is a preservative. Also, the very low 0.2% H2O levels would ensure that natural mummification would take place without complex corpse preparation, such as removing organs and treating with salt for moisture removal, as is done on Earth in places like Egypt. So basically, the mummification would occur naturally on the ground. Some specimens have been found that are in sitting position, so it could be argued that erosion has just revealed many heads whilst the bodies remain buried in the sand just below. Either way, hundreds of skeletal bones should have been found so far. They are conspicuous by their absence. And basically, I found about 10 or 11, and other people have found them as well, but there's not that many. There's nowhere near enough bones lying around on the ground for the number of skulls that have been found. So there's a big discrepancy here. Let's just do that last bit. Okay. Most of the heads are also found near the base of large burial mounds and ridges like we have today, which are barrow-shaped like some on Earth. There are also what resemble stone structures with entrances very similar in construction to burial dolmens on Earth. I've shown them in previous videos. Small piles of stones with like a little entrance. They lean the stones up either side, flat stones, and use them like slabs. And then you have one across the top, like a little roof, and then you bury your dead inside. And I have shown some of these on Mars. The only major differences with these burials are the lack of other bones and the scale. The only major differences to ours, I would say, on Earth. Most Mars skulls are around 1/2 to 1/3 human adult size. Many look human, but many have reptilian facial morphology. Assuming they had similar body to head size ratios to humans, the adult height of these people were as follows. Okay, now I've worked out 6 different types of Martians, and examples of all of these can be found in my playlist, Mars Skulls playlist. Okay, so if you want to go through, well, there's one called Mars Skulls and Bones. You may want to see that. So check out my playlist. I'll put links to the relevant playlist at the end of this video, so you can click on them and you can just flick through. You don't have to watch all the videos. You can just flick through and compare all the different skulls and some of the carvings as well, and see the different facial types. Some of them are reptilian, some of them are more insectoid looking. I'm just going to read this out. Right, A, 9 to 18 inches, small, slender skeletal features, much like the Ataboy or Atacama humanoid found in Chile on Earth. Okay, so that's the smallest size of Martians. There are examples of them. Okay, in fact, there's even two of them kind of mummified together. The Mars man and woman. B, 1 to 2 feet, gremlin-like facial features, wide grinning expressions with large irregular dentition, stocky in nature. Okay, there's quite a few of these, and some of them kind of like gargoyle features, you know. And the problem is some of these tend to overlap. The sizes of these overlap, so there may be some confusion as to which category to put some of these mummies and skulls, because it's not always obvious. C, 3 to 5 feet, insectoid features with large heads, big almond-shaped eye orbits, and small narrow nose and mouth details, much like grey aliens in our sort of mythology. Okay. E, 3 to 6 feet, reptilian-looking skulls with small nasal cavities and nostrils. These are just holes either side. And the size and proportion vary widely of these skulls. Some of them are quite small and some of them are quite large. So there's a big discrepancy or variation in height of these, and there may be subcategories within this group, as with all the others. D, 5 to 6 feet, human-like features and size. Many of these have elongated skulls, much like the ones we see in Peru, and have large eye orbits, like the Paraka of Peru. Okay. I've shown quite a few examples of those. Big, long, elongated cone heads. These are a lot of them, not all of them. Some of the humanoid skulls just do look quite human and aren't that elongated. So some are and some aren't. So there's subdivisions within that group there. E, 12 to 20 feet, older fossils only. An ancient race of troll-like humanoids with sharp carnivorous teeth and wide, powerful jaws. These were predators with very large cranial capacity, around 8 to 10 times that of modern humans. So these were highly intelligent predators, very large, that were quite capable of grabbing you, tearing you limb from limb and eating you on the spot. Okay, I've only found 2 or 3 examples of these so far. They're very scary looking, and well, what can I say? They've got sharp carnivorous teeth designed for cutting meat, and there's enough dental detail on some of these fossils to determine that quite accurately. Okay. Some or all of these types may have been present on the surface and coexisted with each other for millennia, but more research is needed. There are different races found close together on the ground as if on a battlefield. These may have been predated on after death, with the largely inedible skulls left behind by animals. So animals may have dragged away the smaller bones and the arm and leg bones and that kind of thing, because I have found dog skulls. Now dogs do like to chew on bones, okay? And there may be other types of similar scavengers, okay, including lizards and other things that may have dragged bones off and eaten them. So that's a large possibility. The large troll-like skulls are fossilized, so they are likely to be from an earlier epoch. Okay, so I'm not saying all these things coexisted at the same time, but we don't know. There are also many primate skull types, such as apes, that could be confused with some of the more primitive proto-human looking humanoid skulls. More study is required to clarify this matter. Conclusion: at least 6 bipedal species were once roamed the surface of Mars, and some may not have been indigenous. Some may still dwell underground where liquid water is available. Okay. Now, in Gale Crater, incidentally, the very deepest part of Gale Crater, which is 4,700 meters down below the surface, there is a hot spring, and there's thermal activity which was detected from space, which means that there's probably liquid water bubbling up from the ground. Okay. We haven't got there with the rover yet, and the rover may never go there, but that's where, if there's any liquid water in Gale Crater, that's where it's going to be. And you can see that in the satellite images. When you look at the area, there's, if you look at the thermal imaging cameras from the MRO of Gale Crater, the hot spots are probably where liquid water may still be available, okay? So, as I've said from the very beginning of my channel, back in as early as 2013, I said in some of my first videos that I think that Gale Crater may have been one of the last places where liquid water was available on the surface of Mars due to its thermal properties and the heat coming from the ground. So there may be liquid water bubbling up, okay, which is hot and it will not freeze necessarily. So any surviving animals may have gone to Gale Crater to drink this water. And many of the skulls and the humanoid artifacts seem to be in what looks like a burial ground. And if there were animals roaming around, they may have just dug up some of these things and just dragged off at the bones and whatever remains they could find, until that eventually the atmosphere was destroyed or died off, and then they just died off. So we don't really know what happened there, but I still maintain my original theory that Gale Crater was once an oasis with water, and animals came there to drink, and eventually that water ran out. But there may still be a little bit left in the thermal heat part of the crater, the deep part of the crater where there is thermal energy keeping it warm, okay? This may also explain some of the misty images we get on Mars from Gale Crater, where it seems like there's mist obscuring the details in the background. This may be coming from this thermal vent in the ground, and water vapor may be coming up, of course. So there we are. I'm going to leave it there because my voice is about to go. Here's one of the bones. This is one, I didn't find this, but Mars femur, leg bone, alien leg bone. This is well worth watching because I go into a lot of detail with this, much more so than anyone else ever did. And this is actually a bone. You can actually see the pitting there. It's got all the right attributes. It's a femur bone. It's only about 4 or 5 inches long. It's not very big. But I go into much more forensic detail with this than anyone else that's ever done, as I normally do with most of my videos. I go into much greater detail, and I show many more examples, and I show real close-ups and detail that most people don't. And I only really show stuff that I think I can demonstrate to be real. So there we are. So clips coming up in a second. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you can. Leave a comment. If you don't want to leave a comment, leave an emoji, because you can just click on that, nice and quick. The more emojis I get on a video, they're classed as comments, and the more comments you get, the more views you get, and the more YouTube push the video. So please leave an emoji if you like. That would be very helpful. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you soon.